All right, thank you, Cynthia. Well, we do have all sorts of questions coming through here for you, but let's go back.
Yeah, I was
You
going
had
to
a
say,
question.
thank God for the 2 million metric tons of rice,
2.9.
2.9 metric tons of rice. And you said if we can mill all of that, it would take care of 80%.
Oh, 89%.
And you talked about the capacity that is being brought in with the new mills. And I was going to say, but we still have a lot of the imported rice in the market. So how are we going to curb that?
Well, the fact of the matter is that some of our neighbors are not cooperative with us when it comes to the issue of fiscal policy. We're looking at a tariff policy as part of the common tariff structure that the ECOWAS agreed. But we have a lot of non-compliance out of the semi-border, for example. You have a situation where, Benin sets its system in such a way that just allows a lot of things to come through. And of course, the custom has to also do its job and make sure that you can control this. Look, our rice policy today is working and working very well. And it's not different from the rice policy pursued by Pakistan, by India, and by Philippines. In those countries, their customs service had to really step up to the plate and make sure that they can actually forestall smuggling. I know the Nigerian customs is doing its best, but they need to do a lot more. We all have to push on this. Now, what we've decided to do, of course, is to constantly review our own tariff policy in view of the fact that we have, some neighbors that just allows things to come in. It's almost like, when you have your house and you're the only one in which, people are constantly jumping your fence, and then you got to think about how to either redo your fence or get better guard. So we've been intelligent about this, and soon you'll see a new rice tariff policy that allows us to do that. But the fact of the matter is this. I hear people talk quite a lot about, money is being lost, but the fact is, how much are we producing in the country? Look, Nigeria is just about very close to being self-sufficient in rice today. We're creating so much jobs. Take rice in the north, from Sokoto to Kebbi to Zamfara, to Kano, to all those areas, to Kogi State, Gombe, Jigawa, all those areas. Today, the rice work has created 760,000 jobs for our folks. The young people are working. When the president launched the dry season farm program in the country, that was a fantastic decision by the president. Because today you go to the north, you see that apart from the isolated cases we have, which is unfortunate in Maiduguri and other places, for the most part, it is quiet. Why? The question is why. The reason is that the agricultural work has hit ground. Look, we've reached 8 million farmers directly by mobile phones, and they are producing food massively in the wet season, in the dry season. You just go across the entire country, and that has helped us. That is, when you have that kind of an effort, it is helping us to also improve the security issue. Now, your news anchor just said something just a while ago about insecurity in the Northeast. Well, the Northeast happens to be a vast area that we can do wheat, and we are doing that right now. When I was appointed minister, I was tasked by the Senate and also the House of Representatives that, why are we not producing wheat in the North? And I said, I'm not going to do wheat in the North just for politics. I'm not going to do political wheat. But if it makes sense for us to do it, we're going to do it. But you can be sure I'm going to keep working on it because we spend $5 billion a year importing wheat, which makes no sense. Well, we've succeeded. 2 years, we introduced these new varieties of wheat. I just came back from Kano. These varieties give you yields of 6 tons per hectare, as opposed to 0.8 tons per hectare when it was tried in the 1980s. Now that means this year we're cultivating, our farmers, I say, are cultivating 75,000 hectares of that. Next year they will do 150,000 hectares. And the following year they will do 300,000 hectares. Well, at 6 tons per hectare, that means that you can get in 3 years 1.8 million metric tons of wheat. We are importing roughly 4 million metric tons of wheat today. That means that we can create a lot of jobs vast around, all across the northeast and the northwest of the country. That's why you see that the president is very, very serious and committed to the fact of creating jobs locally. Let's produce locally, let's eat locally, let's support our rural economies because, as I said, poverty is not an industry and we're not going to grow that sector.
And you know, if you're trying to do all of that, one other thing that we should also concentrate on, which might also affect our productivity, has to do with knowledge.
Yeah.
So how is the ministry helping to help farmers in having adequate knowledge in crop production, in animal husbandry, in fish farming? Are you helping them in that regard?
Yeah, one of the things that used to work very well for us in the late 70s and early 80s, before the structural adjustment program, was the agricultural development projects, which were called the ADPs. And I know quite a lot about the ADPs and also even the river basin authorities because fortunate that, my father-in-law, when he was Federal Permanent Secretary of Agriculture at the time, actually created those things. So I talk quite a lot to him about them. But what has happened is that since that time, once the World Bank funding for the agricultural development projects ended in the 80s, that was it. The extension system collapsed. And so we've now revived that. Over the last 18 months, we've created a new federal department of agricultural extension for the first time in the history of the country, with a new cadre of staff approved by the head of service of the Federation, for us to bring in young agriculturists, those that are graduates, many of them looking for jobs, to come into the agricultural extension service in the country. Second is that we are also promoting the private extension system. For example, we've imported into the country from Columbia University in New York what is called soil doctors. These are just about this size, just like your regular doctors would go, in those days with bags and go from house to house. Well, this one allows you to test your soil and get your results within 30 minutes of the soil test.
On the spot?
On the spot, in your field. If you were sending it to a lab, it would take you, who knows, 3 months if you ever got it back.
So the individual farmer can do his own test?
Well, actually, the young graduates, young school leavers, can become the soil doctors. They will own those things, and on their own bicycles and so on, they will go from farm to farm and help people to test their soil for a fee. Because people need to understand that it's just like human beings. Soils have health. The fact that you're piling chemicals on the soil doesn't mean it's healthy. So you need to know the structure of the soils, the amount of organic matter you have in the soil. I'm not going to bore you with all of the science of it, but that will create a lot of employment opportunities for people. We are also working with farmers. We have a great program called FADAMA. FADAMA is lowlands, and that project is fantastic. It's funded by the World Bank, Africa Development Bank, and International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD. And they have FADAMA groups in which they extend technologies to each other, advisory services and things like that. So we are working quite a lot on that. But one thing that we are doing now, which we will launch by God's grace before the end of the fourth quarter, is bringing back, all those old marketing boards we used to have, whether it was cotton, whether it was for cocoa. Well, we're bringing back new institutions to replace those things, except they will not be run by government. They'll be run by the private sector. So we are setting up one for cocoa, we're setting one for cassava, and cotton, and so on. So all of these are going to also provide information to farmers and connect farmers better to market.
Sorry, is Nigeria still in the rubber business? Nigeria, are we still in the rubber business?
Yeah, the rubber business, yes, actually,
Because when you talked about board, what comes to mind, I remember once they had a board for that.
Yes, we are back in rubber. As you know, the Minister of Trade and Investment and Industry has put out this plan to revive the automobile industry. And of course, cars don't run on wheels, they run on tires. And which means that we want to have a lot of rubber. We've gone into partnership with the government of France, their agency, there to help us to revitalize a lot of our rubber plantations. So that, we used to have those things in those days, Odutola tires and all those things, Dunlop and so on. So I think it's a good thing. Anything that gets us to produce things locally and add value to it is always going to be in our interest. And for me, that's fantastic.
All right. Okay, that's a question. Let's take this one. Kenneth says, are we going to start labeling genetically modified foods in Nigeria with the modified seeds our farmers use?
Well, let me say that our farmers don't use modified seed, genetically modified seed. The fact of the matter is that there are two ways in which you get technologies in breeding, right? You can use conventional breeding, or you can use non-conventional breeding. Now, in conventional breeding, a lot of what we actually do today, whether we are distributing high-yielding cassava varieties or whether we are distributing high-yielding rice varieties or sorghum varieties, they are hybrids. They are developed from conventional breeding. They're just like you develop any other breeds. There's nothing genetically modified about them at all. But let me say that is not to suggest that we don't need biotechnology, because I'm a scientist and I know that you need to have biotechnology. Let me give you two examples of why that's important. Take the case, for example, of malnutrition. Despite all of what we've been talking about, we do have pockets of malnutrition in parts of the country, especially in the Northeast, and part of it is because of the insecurity issues, instability there, and so on. We have a number of kids that are stunted and malnourished, and you have wastage there. Well, to deal with that, we've launched a massive program to distribute what we call orange flesh sweet potato. A sweet potato that has a lot of beta-carotene inside of it, and that helps a lot of kids. We also have developed from the National Root Crop Research Institute in Umudike, fantastic institute, Nigerian institute, with IITA in Ibadan. They've developed this pro-vitamin A cassava, again, highly enriched cassava varieties. Now that has loads of vitamins in it, and they are great for kids. And we're distributing that to 2.5 million households in the country to help them. So it's not everything that conventional technology can help you to do, but non-conventional sometimes helps. Take cotton, for example. Today, when people produce cotton, because of cotton bollworm, they apply a lot of pesticides. When you apply those pesticides, if you're blowing against the wind, it's blowing right at you. And so it can actually cause you to have a lot of nausea, eye problems, headaches, and in some cases, if you don't do it well, people could die from that. And so today you have a technology called Bt cotton. It's a GMO technology, but it's used by everybody producing cotton today. Nigeria is the only country in West Africa that is not using Bt cotton. We're not going to be laggards and fold our hands while everybody else takes the market. And so we've introduced Bt cotton. It's not consumed. Of course, it's just like everybody else. So what I'm saying is that for us to be the global player that we want to be, we will use technologies, we will use it sensibly, we will make sure that we have regulatory systems in place to allow us to use modern technology. But we're not going to be like those that say, well, I want to go to Europe, but I would prefer to go on camel instead of a plane.
There's no name to this question, actually, but it says, biodiesel as alternative fuel. How feasible for our economy, considering the population increase, and what sort of research is going into it?
Well, great question there. There's huge opportunity for ethanol. And right now in the country, you see a number of plants are coming up that use cassava, for example, for ethanol. One of them was just launched recently. The other one is Jatropha. Jatropha is very good for you to get biodiesel, and so it's also a very good crop. Now, using sugarcane is also a very good way to get ethanol. So, but at the end of the day, it all depends on the price of petrol vis-a-vis the price of ethanol. So if the price works out well, you can always do it.
There are some who think that you're paying more attention to the large-scale farmers, and the small-scale farmers are being neglected. Is that true?
Well, it's totally not true. First is that I am somebody who does not believe that growth is a bad thing. We must never be afraid of growth. what we got to do is to grow and ensure that that growth is shared prosperity for all. Now, in this country, we have three groups of farmers. We have smallholder farmers, you have young entrepreneurial farmers, the youth that are coming up, and then you have the large commercial farmers. Now, what we've done is to optimize across everything. We're not going to remain very small. No, we can't do that because we want to be a global player in the agriculture sector. Take a look at all of our policies. 8 million farmers getting improved seed and fertilizer. President says subsidize them. Today, all those smallholder farmers are getting the following. Let me just speak for you the case of cocoa. President approved for us to distribute high-yielding cocoa varieties, which gives farmers 5 times the yields that they are currently getting today. We are distributing 114 million seedlings free of charge. We're doing 9 million sprouted nuts of oil palm seedlings, sprouted nuts of it, free of charge to smallholder farmers and private estates. You look at rice and you look at cassava, you look at sorghum, all of that is being done for smallholder farmers. Today, our smallholder farmers in the country have dignity back because we ended corruption in the seed and fertilizer industry. You see their productivity is going up all across the country. When I go, I am more comfortable, by the way, in a field. Forget the bow tie. I'm actually a field person. So you see a lot of massive movement and a happiness by our farmers. However, when I see someone like Dangote go to the World Economic Forum and say, well, 10 years ago or 5 years ago, if anybody had told me that he was going to be investing money in agriculture in Nigeria, he would say the person that he just woke out of a bad dream. Today, he's putting so much money into agriculture. It's going to be announcing, in fact, he announced it there in Davos, $300 million investment in commercial rice production and milling in Nigeria. Look, you take a look at Tony Elumelu, he's doing that. So we know we have the large players, and we have flour mills of Nigeria and others, but we also have a lot of the small players, and our policy takes care of all. I know that one area in which I've been criticized is actually not taking, that our policies have not been so much for the big guys, that our GES program has been for the smaller guys. And I say, well, you look at a pyramid, at the bottom you have a lot more people, so we want to take those guys up. But we are not going to forget the large guys. So starting this year, we're working now with the World Bank to start a new program, commercial agriculture program, that will help our large guys access to equipment, long-term finance, for them to grow their commercial farms. And I hope the three of you can become large farmers, and when I come, you won't ask me that question. You'll be looking fine.
That is if we're not already.
Okay, Dr. Akinwunmi Adesina is the Minister of Agriculture. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure to be here.
All right, we're back in just a moment here. Please join us again.